My name is Marceline Dawes. I am 54 years old. I was a nurse for 30 years. I raised 2 children on my own. I worked overtime, learned how to fix a leaky sink, and kept my mother alive through the last hard year of her life. People call me steady. I call myself someone who keeps going. I live in a small town in Georgia. I have a little porch that creaks in the rain and a garden that will not quit even when I forget to water it. I have a heart that has been bruised and mended more times than I can count. Last spring I met a kind man named LeVar Bishop. He is soft with his hands and quick with a smile. He is the kind of man who makes you forget how many times you told yourself you would be alone. We decided to marry. Before I tell you what happened next, please, if you like honest stories that cut deep and then heal, subscribe to this channel. Hit like if you want more stories like this, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next chapter. Drop a comment below and tell me where you are watching from so I know who is sitting with me. Your words help me keep going. The wedding was 2 weeks away. Dresses were ordered. My sister had flown in from Detroit. My children had taken time off work. The church was paid for. The guests were invited. My dead grandma, who everyone called Nana Ruth, lay in her box under a cedar chest, and I had just put a small bouquet on her hands the week before. Nana Ruth had a way of seeing things other people did not see. She kept secrets tucked in plain sight, under the hem of quilts or inside the lining of old coats. When she woke from a dream, she would write it down and fold the paper like a map. Sometimes the dreams were nonsense. Once she dreamed that raccoons were judges in a courtroom, and we laughed for days. But she also told me the names of men who would hurt me and the names of women who would lift me up. She told the truth in a voice that sounded like a clock. On a humid Tuesday morning, in the kitchen drinking coffee that tasted like old pennies and courage, I found a small envelope pushed between the pages of a Bible Nana Ruth had left me. Her handwriting was there, slow and looping, the same hand that stitched my baby blanket. The envelope had my name written across it. I had not opened it at the funeral. I had thought it rude to peek at what the dead left you. I thought the world had to follow the living rules. But grief has a way of loosening rules, and curiosity has a way of prying open anything with a seam. The paper inside was thin. The words were simple. The note read, "Cancel your wedding." The note had no explanation. No date. No signature. Just those 2 words, so quiet and strong they felt like a command. I went to the mirror and held the paper against my chest. I thought maybe I had dreamed it, but the paper was real. The ink smelled like old pen and rain. My hands shook, but not from age. I did not know a warning could feel so cold. LeVar called that morning. He was cheerful, making plans about the cake and the seating. He wanted to pick up my ring from the jeweler. He wanted to bring his mother, Eudora Clay, a dish of her favorite sweet potato pie on Friday. He talked about the vineyard where we might go for pictures. He did not know about the note. I did not tell him. Instead, I made an excuse. I said I would go by his mother's house to drop off a casserole and to thank her for all the help. My hands folded the casserole almost mechanically. My mind folded around the words on that paper like a fist. Eudora Clay lived 2 streets over in a house with wind chimes that sang if the wind had time. She had been quiet the first time I met her. She had a voice like velvet and a stare that could measure a person in seconds. People said she ran the neighborhood like a queen without a crown. She had raised LeVar alone and had held on to a few things tight. I had tried to be polite, to make sweet potato pie with extra cinnamon so she would tell me her secrets. She never told many. She smiled and changed the subject. She always spoke of family first, like family was the one thing you could not trade or return. I drove to her house with the note folded inside my bra like a secret baby. The sky was heavy and blue. My palms left small prints on the casserole lid. The porch light was on although it was noon. I did not like that. I knocked. The door opened a crack before I could lift my hand from the knob. Eudora stood there in a floral dress, hair pinned back, one eyebrow lifted as if she had been waiting for me. Her eyes flicked over my face and landed on the casserole. She smiled a tight smile. "Come in," she said, and there was a stranger in the way she said it. Her living room smelled like lemon oil and old magazines. Her furniture sat like it had been arranged to keep people at a polite distance. On the wall was a portrait of Lavar at 20, laughing, arms around a woman I did not know. He looked lighter then, as though some weight that later settled on his shoulders had not yet found him. I sat on a chair that had a sunspot on the arm and placed the casserole on the coffee table. Eudora poured tea without asking. We talked about the wedding like two people reading the same script. She asked about the cake. I asked about the bridesmaids. She complimented my dress choice. Then I asked without thinking why her lights had been on at odd hours, if someone had been staying over. She blinked. Slow. "No one has been staying over," she said, but her voice carried something like an apology. Something in me tightened. I remembered the note. I said the words then, too soft for the room, "Cancel your wedding," and watched her face. Eudora's hand paused on the teacup. For a moment she seemed to shrink behind her own manners. Then she smiled the same tight smile that was a border and not an invitation. "Why would Nana Ruth tell you that?" she said. Before I could answer, before I could fold the note back into my ribs, Eudora moved in a way that told me she intended to show me something. She stood and crossed the floor to a cabinet and opened a lower drawer. She pulled out a shoebox. The box was brown and taped in a way that meant it had stayed closed through many years. She set it on the coffee table and put her palm over the lid. "Marcy," she said, and she used a name I had not heard since childhood, "you should not poke in things that you do not understand." My heart pounded like a drum. I wanted to take the box and run out the door. I wanted to leave the wedding in the oven and go home and hide under my quilts. I also wanted to know what was inside that box more than I wanted breath. Eudora moved her hand and the tape stuck and peeled like skin. She lifted the lid and inside were photographs. Old ones, with edges like pages of a book. Faces looked back at me that should not have been in her house. There my grandmother, Nana Ruth, young and fierce, smiling with her arm around another woman. There, a man I had never seen, his face folded into a laugh and wearing a jacket with an insignia I did not recognize. And there, tucked between the photos, a small folded envelope with my name on it in the same looping hand as the note in my Bible. I reached for it because the world had narrowed to that one small paper. My fingers grazed the envelope and then the phone in Eudora's hand began to buzz. She looked at it and then back at me, a shadow moving behind her eyes. "Do not open that," she said, and her voice had a break in it I had never heard. The room felt like the center of a storm. I had my hand on the envelope. I could feel the impression of my name on the thin paper. I could feel all the years that led up to this moment, every secret woven like a seam in the world. Someone knocked at the front door. The knock was quick and loud. It cut across the room like a blade. Eudora's face changed in an instant. She straightened and her smile vanished like chalk. My hand froze in mid-air over the envelope, and in that frozen second I knew nothing would be as it had been when the day began. I do not know who is at the door, or what I will find if I walk there. I only know that an old voice had left me a small paper with a warning, and that paper had led me to a house where secrets sat in shoeboxes and in the space between two people who had once been young. When I stood to answer the knock, the house seemed to hold its breath with me. The envelope was still warm under my fingers. I opened the door. I wish I could tell you that when I opened that door, sunlight poured in and everything made sense. But the truth is, the moment that door swung open, the air changed. It felt heavy, like the world was holding a secret it did not want to release. A tall man stood on the porch, his hat pulled low, his expression unreadable. He had the kind of face that made you step back without knowing why. His eyes slid past me and landed on Eudora. Something in her stiffened. She smoothed her dress with trembling fingers. "Ma'am," the man said, his voice careful and slow, "I'm looking for Eudora Clay." Eudora stepped forward, blocking his view of the living room like she was trying to hide the shoebox from the whole world. "I am Eudora," she said, and even though her voice was polite, it carried a warning tucked underneath. The man didn't smile. He didn't blink either. He held out a small white envelope, sealed and stamped. Someone dropped this off at the station for you this morning. Said it was urgent. No return name. No address. Eudora's hand shook when she reached for it. I saw the tremble. She hid it quickly, but not quick enough for me to miss. The man tipped his hat. Why, all take care now. Then he walked off the porch as though he had delivered a bomb instead of a letter. When the door closed behind him, the silence crawled into the space between us. Eudora held the envelope like it was a live wire. What is going on? I asked. My voice sounded thin even to me. Eudora did not answer right away. Her eyes were fixed on the envelope like she was trying to read through the paper. Then she looked at me, and what she said next felt like it pulled the floor out from under my feet. Marceline, your grandmother was keeping something from you. Something big. My stomach tightened. My breath came shallow. Do not say that, I whispered. Do not say anything about her unless you know. But Eudora kept going. The note she left you, the one you found in your Bible, that was not the only one. She wrote more. She wrote several. I looked at the shoebox still sitting open on the coffee table. The envelope with my name on it. The old photographs. My grandmother in a place I had never seen her. Why do you have these? I asked, barely breathing. Why were they in your house? Eudora walked past me and sat down slowly, like her bones were made of stories she had tried too long to carry. She opened the new envelope. Her fingers slid a single folded sheet of paper out. She unfolded it, and I watched her eyes move back and forth like a pendulum that was keeping time with a memory. When she handed me the paper, her hand brushed mine. Her skin felt cold. The note was written in the same looping handwriting I had seen my whole life. The same way she wrote grocery lists, birthday cards, prayers she didn't tell anyone she prayed. Marceline, if you are reading this, it means the truth found you before someone else did. Do not trust the smiling ones. Do not walk into a house unless your heart is steady. And do not marry into a family that carries the kind of secrets that bury women. My heart dropped into my stomach. Do not marry into a family that carries secrets that bury women. Women. Plural. My hands tightened around the letter until I felt the paper wrinkle. What secrets? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Eudora took a deep breath, and for the first time since I met her, she looked afraid of her own truth. Your grandmother and I knew each other long before you ever met my son, she said. We were connected in ways neither of us could run from. Your grandmother tried to warn you because she lived through something you were about to repeat. I stared at her. The room felt too small for all the truths pressing in. Repeat what? I asked. Eudora swallowed slowly, like her throat was full of rocks. She opened the shoebox wider and pulled out another photograph. It was old, almost faded. In it, a younger Eudora stood beside a young man with a smile too wide and too sharp. This was my husband, she said quietly. Lavar's father. I stared. He didn't look like Lavar. He didn't look kind. His smile was the kind people wear when they know something you don't. Eudora's hands shook harder now. Her voice dropped to a whisper. 3 women connected to him died young. All under strange circumstances. A chill ran down my spine. One was my cousin, Eudora said, voice breaking. One was a neighbor. And the last was your grandmother's closest friend. I felt my breath leave my body. I looked down at the picture of Nana Ruth smiling with the same woman who lay in that shoebox now captured in a memory. Everything in the room darkened around the edges. Your grandmother believed my husband was responsible, Eudora whispered. She tried to warn the last woman. But it was too late. And after that, your grandmother stayed far away from our family. She wrote down every dream, every sign, every warning. She tried to make sure her bloodline would never cross ours again. A sound escaped my throat that didn't feel like mine. A choked thing. A scared thing. And now, Eudora whispered, her eyes filling with something almost like apology, your wedding to my son brought the 2 families back together. Your grandmother knew. She saw it coming. That is why she left you that note. I stepped back as if the words had pushed me. I trusted Lavar, I said, my voice shaking. I loved him. He was not like that. Eudora nodded. I know. That is why this is harder. But blood carries things, Marceline. Not everything passes. Some things hide and wait for the right moment. My hands went numb. The room tilted. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break through my chest. Suddenly, a noise sliced through the house. A loud thump. Then another. Coming from the back hallway. Eudora froze. I froze. That is not the wind, she whispered. Something moved again. Closer this time. Heavy. Slow. Like someone dragging something across the floor. My breath caught. Eudora stood quickly and whispered, Marceline, listen to me. Whatever you do, whatever you hear, do not open the door at the end of that hallway. My skin crawled. Why, I asked. What is behind it? Eudora swallowed. Tears pooled in her eyes. Something that should have stayed buried. The thumping got louder. Then it stopped completely, like someone was standing on the other side of the hall door, listening. I took one slow step backward, my heart pounding so hard I felt it in my teeth. The silence pressed in so thick I could taste it. And then, with a sound that froze every part of me, the doorknob at the end of the hallway began to turn. The doorknob turned slowly, like whoever was on the other side wanted us to hear every single click. My breath hitched. My hands curled into fists without me meaning to. Eudora grabbed my wrist with a grip so tight it shocked me. Do not move, she whispered. Her voice trembled. The house felt too quiet. Too still. Every sound echoed in my ears like a warning. The doorknob clicked again. Then, suddenly, it stopped. A silence so thick you could scoop it with a spoon filled the hallway. It pressed against my chest, crawled into my lungs, sat on my tongue. Then a voice. Low. Dragging. Familiar. Mama. I froze. The voice was Lavar's. He sounded weak. Like the words were being pulled out of him. Mama. Help me. My knees nearly gave out. My heart hammered against my ribs. That's Lavar, I whispered, trying to take a step forward, but Eudora yanked me back so hard I almost fell. No, she whispered fiercely. That is not my son. Not the way you know him. Mama. Please. I can't breathe. The voice was strained, choking, desperate. I stared at the door. My throat tightened. Everything in me screamed to open it. To help him. To find out what was wrong. Eudora leaned toward me, her eyes wet, her voice shaking. Marceline, listen to me. My husband, he was not just violent. He carried something dark. Something that passed into the bloodline. Something that takes hold when a man is pushed too far. I shook my head. That made no sense. None of this made sense. Lavar is good, I said, choking on the words. He is gentle. He loves me. Eudora nodded painfully. Yes. But a good man can still carry darkness he does not see. My husband hid his for years before it took over. I felt sick. My stomach twisted. The voice behind the door whimpered. Mama. It hurts. A tear slipped down my cheek. I took one step toward the hallway. Eudora stepped in front of me, blocking the path with her whole body. Do you hear me? She whispered. Do not open that door. Whatever is speaking is not the man you love. I swallowed hard. My chest burned. What happened to him? I whispered. What's wrong with him? Eudora's shoulders sagged. She wiped her eyes with trembling fingers. 2 nights ago, Lavar came here. He was shaking. Sweating. He said he felt cold inside. He said he heard whispers telling him to hurt you. My breath stopped. I shook my head violently. No. No. I don't believe that. He would never hurt me. Eudora stepped closer, her voice breaking. Marcy, please. I know, my boy. He loves you. But love cannot always fight what is buried deep. Whatever was in his father is waking up in him. Your grandmother knew this. She saw the signs. She tried to protect you. Hot tears filled my eyes. Lavar's voice came again. Mama, please. Open the door. I'm scared. This time it was weaker. More desperate. More human. I pressed my hand against my mouth as my heart cracked open. Every memory of him rushed through me like a flood, his laugh, his gentle hands, the way he looked at me like I was peace itself. I couldn't leave him behind that door. I couldn't. He needed me. I took another step toward the hallway. But before I could move again, the voice behind the door changed. It dropped lower, darker. A growl twisted into the words. Marceline. I went cold all over. Eudora grabbed my hand. Her nails dug into my skin. He knows you're here, she whispered. The doorknob rattled violently this time. Then a bang, a loud, heavy bang like someone throwing their whole body against the door. Marceline. Open this door. I stumbled backward, covering my ears. My heartbeat raced so fast I thought it might tear out of me. That I senti him, Eudora cried. That thing is not my son. The banging got louder, harder, fierce and wild. Then suddenly, silence. A silence so strange, so unnatural, it made the hair on my arms lift. Eudora whispered, he stopped. I whispered, why did he stop? She swallowed. Fear shivered through her voice. Because he knows we are listening. We stood there, frozen. 1 second. 2. 3. Then slowly, very slowly, the hallway door handle began to twist again. But this time, it turned all the way. The lock clicked. Then a voice, whisper soft but sharp enough to slice right through my spine, said my name again. Marceline. Eudora pulled me behind her like she was shielding a child. The door creaked open an inch. Just an inch. Enough for darkness to spill out like smoke. Enough for something to move inside that darkness. Eudora whispered, run. I stared at the door. At the blackness behind it. At the shape I couldn't yet see. My body refused to move. Then, with a slow, sickening sound, a pale hand slid through the opening. A hand with long, trembling fingers. A hand wearing the gold ring I had chosen for Lavar last month. I gasped. The hand pressed against the doorframe like it was feeling for me. Then his face appeared. But it wasn't his face anymore. It was wrong. Too pale. Too hollow. Eyes too dark. A smile that didn't belong to him stretching across his mouth. He whispered, bride. And that one word broke something inside me. Eudora shoved me hard toward the back door. Run, she screamed. Run now. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't look back. But as I reached the kitchen, I heard a sound that froze me mid-step. A sound that tore through the house like a scream and a growl tangled together. Then Eudora's voice. Marceline, go. And the last thing I heard before I threw myself out the back door was the sound of something rushing out of that hallway. Fast. I burst out the back door so fast I nearly stumbled off the steps. The sunlight slapped my face, warm and bright, but it did nothing to calm the panic clawing at my throat. Behind me, the house groaned like something inside it had woken up hungry. I ran. Not gracefully. Not bravely. I ran like a woman who had death breathing right on her neck. My shoes slipped in the grass. My legs shook. My heart banged against my ribs like it wanted to escape. I didn't dare look back. Not once. Marceline. Eudora's voice tore across the yard, sharp and desperate. Then another voice followed. A voice that wasn't hers. A voice that cracked and growled like two people speaking at once. Bride. My whole body froze. No. Not froze. Locked. Locked in fear so deep it felt ancient. I forced my legs to move again. I sprinted toward the tall hedges lining the side of her yard. Branches whipped my arms. My breath scraped my lungs. I reached the opening between the hedges and collapsed to my knees on the gravel path behind them. My chest heaved. Sweat poured down my face. Then something slammed against the back door of Eudora's house. A loud, shaking crash. I flinched so hard my teeth clacked. I crawled deeper into the hedges until branches scratched my neck. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from crying out. Then, silence. A heavy, dreadful silence that wrapped around me like a cold hand. Something's wrong, I whispered to myself. Something's terribly wrong. I peeked through a crack in the hedges. From here, I could only see the back porch steps and the edge of the open doorway, but nothing moved inside the house. No shadow. No sound. No Lavar. No Eudora. The quiet was worse than any scream. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and tried to slow my shaking breaths. "You're okay, Marceline," I whispered to myself. "Just breathe. Just breathe." But even as I said it, I didn't believe it. Then, far off, somewhere deep inside the house, a woman screamed. "Eudora." My whole body jerked forward like someone pulled a string in my spine. Now I was breathing too fast. Too shallow. Too panicked. I wanted to run back to her. I wanted to call her name. But another sound cut through the house and reached me even from outside. Footsteps. No. Not footsteps. Running. Heavy running. Running straight toward the back door. I slapped my hand over my mouth again. The footsteps stopped. Right at the threshold. Then I heard breathing. Deep. Wet. Uneven. So close I felt it in my bones. I curled into myself. My fingers dug into the dirt, into the gravel, into anything I could hold on to. Then, through the hedges I saw it. A shadow. Long. Too long for any normal human. Stretching across the porch like something no sun should be able to shape. I pressed myself deeper into the hedge, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then a low voice drifted out. Not loud. Not rushed. Just steady. Hunting. Ma, see, line. Tears burned my eyes. I prayed it wouldn't find me. I prayed I would wake up. I prayed my grandmother hadn't been right about the darkness in that bloodline. Leaves rustled above me. A twig snapped behind me. No, no, no. Slowly, I turned my head, expecting to see a pale face staring back at me through the branches. But instead, I saw something else. A phone. My phone. Lying in the dirt beside an overturned flower pot. It must have fallen out when I ran. My chest tightened. I needed it. I needed help. I needed to warn someone. But if I moved an inch too loud, the shadow outside shifted again. I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer. Lord, help me move like a ghost. With shaking fingers, I reached through the branches and pulled the phone toward me inch by inch. Dirt scraped under my nails. Rocks cut my palm. I pulled it close enough to tap the screen with my thumb. The screen lit up. Bright. Too bright. I nearly cried out. The shadow on the porch twitched. I froze. But it didn't turn. Not yet. I opened my messages. My hands trembled so badly I could barely type. I started writing a message to my daughter. Something short. Something urgent. Something that would make sense if this was the last message she ever got from me. But just as I typed the word help, the shadow moved. Fast. Too fast. It rushed down the porch steps. I ducked. My phone slipped from my hand and fell face down in the dirt, screen flashing. The footsteps sprinted toward the yard, then away from me, toward the side gate, toward the street, toward escape. I peeked again. The yard was empty. The shadow was gone. I didn't know if it was hunting Eudora. I didn't know if it was hunting me. All I knew was this. It had left the house. That meant one thing. I wasn't safe anymore. Anywhere. I crawled out from the hedges and grabbed my phone with shaking hands. My message hadn't finished sending. My screen was cracked. My signal flickered between one bar and none. I staggered to my feet and stared at Eudora's house. The back door hung open. The living room was dark. No movement. No breath. No sign of what happened. I whispered her name once. Eudora. No answer. I knew I should run. I knew I should call someone. But my grandmother's warnings echoed through my mind like a distant bell. Do not marry into a family that carries secrets that bury women. Secrets. Bury. Women. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I needed answers. I needed to know if Eudora was alive. I needed to know what had happened to Lavar. My fear curled into something sharper. Something steadier. A strange bravery rose inside me. I tightened my grip on my phone. Then I stepped forward. Toward the house. Toward the silence. Toward the darkness waiting inside. But before I reached the porch, my phone buzzed in my hand. One new text. Unknown number. And the message made every drop of blood in my body go cold. You should have listened to your grandmother. The message glowed on my cracked screen, each letter sharp as a blade. You should have listened to your grandmother. My breath caught. My heart hammered so hard I felt the pulse in my fingertips. My hands shook as I looked up at Eudora's house. The doors hung open, the shadows inside still as a held breath. Someone was watching me. Someone who knew my number. Someone who knew my grandmother. I spun around, scanning the yard, the hedges, the street, the tall pines swaying in the breeze. Nothing moved. No faces. No shadows. No footsteps. Just the quiet hum of the neighborhood. Like the world was pretending nothing had happened. I swallowed, gripping my phone tighter. You don't get to scare me, I whispered, even though fear was crawling under my skin like ants. I took a step toward the porch. Then another. The wooden boards creaked under my feet, the sound too loud in the still air. My fingers brushed the open door, and the moment I crossed that threshold, the temperature dropped. Cold. A strange kind of cold, like the air had been holding its breath for too long. The living room looked almost the same as before, as if nothing had been turned upside down. The shoebox still sat on the coffee table. The photos were still spread out. But something felt wrong in the room. Like someone invisible was standing in the corner watching me. I forced myself to move deeper into the house. Eudora. I whispered. Are you there? Silence. My footsteps echoed softly on the hardwood floor. The hallway where I'd seen the door open was darker now, like the shadows had grown thicker. I tried not to look at it. My phone buzzed again. A second text. Same unknown number. Stop looking for her. My stomach dropped. I backed away from the hallway, my hand shaking so bad I nearly dropped the phone. I forced myself to breathe. Slow. Deep. Quiet. I walked toward the kitchen instead. That was the direction Eudora had pushed me toward before everything spiraled. Maybe she escaped. Maybe she was hiding. Maybe. My thoughts stopped when I saw it. A single streak of dark red across the floor, faint but clear, leading from the kitchen to the back hallway. Blood. Fresh. My knees almost buckled. No, I whispered. Please no. I followed the streak slowly, each step like walking closer to a truth I didn't want. The streak led to a doorway that hadn't been open earlier. A pantry door. I stood in front of it, heart punching my ribs, breath shivering in and out. I reached for the doorknob with trembling fingers. Please be alive, I whispered. Please. I opened the door. Inside, the pantry was small and dim. Shelves lined the walls. And there, slumped against the back wall, was Eudora. Her knees pulled to her chest. Her eyes half open. Her breathing shallow. Alive. Barely. I rushed inside and kneeled beside her. Eudora, can you hear me? Her lips parted. A weak whisper slipped out. Close the door. I slammed it shut, plunging us into near darkness except for a sliver of light leaking from under the door. She grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly tight. "Listen to me," she whispered, breath ragged. "He's not himself. It's not him. It's what came through him." I shook my head, tears welling. "I don't understand. What is happening to him?" Her eyes lifted to mine, glassy and wet. "Your grandmother, she knew. She tried to stop it years ago. This thing, this darkness, it follows the men in my husband's family. It grows in them, twists them, takes them when their hearts crack." My heart stung. "But Lavar, he was gentle. He loved me." "I know," she whispered. "That's why he fought it longer than the others. But you," she coughed, the sound low and painful. "You getting close to him, you getting ready to marry him. It woke something." Tears slipped down my cheeks. "The same thing happened to my best friend," she whispered, voice trembling. "Your grandmother tried to save her, but she didn't get there in time." The room felt smaller, colder. "What does it want?" I asked. Eudora shook her head slowly. "It wants control, but it feeds on fear, on love, on the women closest to them." A chill ran down my spine. "So, it wants me." "Yes," she breathed. "And once it fully takes a man," her voice trembled, "there's no getting him back." I covered my mouth with shaking hands. Eudora looked at me with a softness that broke my heart. "You can't save him, Marceline. You have to save yourself." Suddenly, footsteps echoed through the house. Slow, heavy, coming toward the kitchen. Eudora's eyes widened. "He's coming." My pulse jumped, wild and erratic. A shadow moved under the pantry door crack. A whisper followed it. Low, dragging, hungry, bride. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart racing so hard it was painful. Eudora grabbed my hand again. "Run when I say run," she whispered. "No," I whispered back. "You can't even move. I can't leave you." "You have to," she rasped. "Don't waste the warning your grandmother gave you." The doorknob shifted. Just a little. I clamped a hand over my mouth. The steps stopped right outside the door. The air thickened. The shadows deepened. Then we heard it. A soft sniffing sound. As if something on the other side was smelling the air. Smelling for me. Eudora squeezed my hand weakly. "Get ready," she whispered. The sniffing stopped. A moment later, the doorknob twisted again. Slowly, quietly, deliberately. My lungs locked. Eudora whispered one word. "Run." And the door flew open. The pantry door flew open so hard it slammed into the wall behind it, shaking the shelves. Bags of rice and cans rattled and tumbled around us. A sharp gasp tore out of my throat as bright light from the kitchen spilled in, stretching across the floor like a blade. He stood there. Lavar. Or whatever was left of him. His body filled the doorway, but his posture was twisted, shoulders hunched too far forward, head tilted slightly like something inside him was listening to a song the rest of US couldn't hear. His skin was pale with a grayish tone, as if life had drained from him drop by drop. His eyes, Lord, his eyes. Black. Not dark brown. Not shadowed. Black. Completely swallowed by darkness, like two deep wells with no bottom. A smile stretched across his face, slow and unnatural. It was Lavar's mouth, but not Lavar's spirit. It didn't hold warmth. It didn't hold love. It held hunger. When he spoke, his voice cracked between familiar and monstrous, like two voices trying to share the same throat. Marcy Eline. I stumbled backwards so fast I hit the shelf behind me. Tins clattered. My breath choked in my chest. Eudora pushed herself up with a painful groan. "Go," she rasped. "Run." But Lavar stepped inside the pantry, blocking most of the doorway. His fingers twitched at his sides. His wedding band finger dragged slightly, as if the metal burned him. He tilted his head. Bride. The words slithered into the room. Eudora suddenly cried out, startling him. You leave her alone. LeVar, or the thing wearing him, turned its head toward Eudora with a crack so sharp it echoed in the small space. His grin widened. Mama. You shouldn't have interfered. His voice dropped, deep, rumbling, filled with something ancient and terrible. Eudora's breath trembled. You're not my son. He moved then. Fast. Too fast. He lunged toward her like a shadow breaking from its shape. No. I screamed. I threw myself forward without thinking. My hand grabbed a glass jar from the shelf, a jar of pickled okra, and I smashed it across his temple with every ounce of fear inside me. Glass shattered. Liquid splashed. He snarled, yes, snarled, and reeled back, clutching his head. The moment he loosened his grip, I grabbed Eudora under her arms. Move. I whispered fiercely. Please, please move. She groaned but pushed her weight onto her feet. I half-dragged, half-lifted her out of the pantry. Behind us, LeVar growled, a low, guttural sound that didn't belong in any human throat. The second we cleared the doorway, I kicked the pantry door shut again and leaned my weight against it. But something slammed into the other side immediately. Boom. The impact nearly knocked me off my feet. Eudora winced. Marceline, run. He'll break through. I grabbed her chin gently. I'm not leaving you. She shook her head weakly. You can't save me. But you can save yourself. Your grandmother would want that. Boom. The hinges groaned. He hit the door again. Boom. The wood splintered. I grabbed Eudora's arm and forced her toward the back door, which still hung open. We're both getting out, I whispered. Come on. We stumbled into the living room. Twice she nearly collapsed, but I tightened my grip and pulled her with me. Boom. He broke through. His footsteps thundered toward us. I dragged Eudora toward the open door, her breath sharp and shallow. When we reached the porch steps, I turned back and saw him, silhouetted in the doorway, his chest rising and falling like an animal, his head lowered, watching us with those empty black eyes. He stepped onto the porch, slow and deliberate. Marceline. The voice wasn't even trying to pretend anymore. The darkness inside him was speaking clearly now. You belong to me. Eudora whispered, keep running. Don't look back. We staggered off the porch and across the yard. My legs burned. My lungs seared. I pulled Eudora with everything I had left in me. Behind us, the sound of footsteps changed. They were faster. Closer. Running. I spun around to see him sprinting toward us. Not like a man. Like something wild. Something primal. Something that moved with no hesitation or mercy. My heart slammed against my ribs. I screamed and yanked Eudora forward. Then, headlights flashed. A car screeched to a stop at the curb. A woman jumped out, a middle-aged woman with short braids and a badge clipped to her belt. What the hell? She gasped, seeing us. I screamed. Help us. She rushed toward us just as LeVar burst through the yard. Her hand flew to her holster. Stop, she shouted. He didn't stop. He lunged. She fired. The gunshot cracked through the air like lightning. LeVar stumbled. Not fell. Not dropped. Just stumbled. He looked down at the blood blooming across his shirt. Then he lifted his head. And smiled. The officer froze in terror. I screamed. It's not him. It's not him anymore. She raised the gun again. But LeVar moved. He slammed into the officer with such force that both of them went crashing across the grass. The gun skidded away across the gravel. The officer gasped, fighting beneath him. Get off me. Eudora cried out, voice cracking. Marceline, run. But my feet refused. I couldn't leave the officer. I couldn't leave Eudora. I couldn't let that thing win. My eyes darted across the yard, looking for anything Anything that could be a weapon. And then I saw it. The metal garden rake leaning against the hedges. I grabbed it and ran toward them with a scream I didn't recognize, a sound born from terror and rage and heartbreak. I swung the rake with all my strength. It hit Lavar's back with a sickening crack. He roared, something inhuman, and whipped his head toward me. His eyes widened. His smile stretched. He whispered, "Bride." I raised the rake again, shaking from head to toe. Behind me, Eudora screamed my name. The officer reached for her fallen gun. And Lavar, or the thing wearing him, began to rise from the ground, blood dripping down his shirt, eyes filled with endless black. And I realized, with a fear that hollowed me out, this thing was not going to stop. Not tonight. Not ever. Not until one of us was gone. Lavar rose to his feet with a slow, sickening grace. Blood soaked the front of his shirt, but he didn't seem bothered by it. Not shocked. Not weakened. If anything, the wound made him stand taller, darker, more certain of the thing he had become. He tilted his head at me, and his neck popped like dry wood snapping. "Bride." His voice slithered across the yard and wrapped around my spine. The officer scrambled backward on her elbows, reaching for her fallen gun, her breath ragged and terrified. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice trembling. Lavar didn't even look at her. His eyes, those black, bottomless wells, were locked on me. Eudora, leaning against the porch railing, her face ghost pale with pain, yelled, "Marceline, run! Please, baby, run!" But I couldn't move. Not because I was frozen with fear. Because something in me had cracked open. Anger. Grief. Betrayal. Love. Every emotion I ever felt for the man I intended to marry collided in my chest. I gripped the rake tighter, the metal handle slick with sweat. "No," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. "Not anymore." Lavar's smile stretched wider, too wide for any real human mouth. He lunged. I swung the rake with every ounce of strength left in my body. The metal teeth raked across his shoulder, tearing his shirt and ripping into his skin. He snarled, stumbling sideways before recovering with terrifying speed. His hands curled like claws as he rushed me again. The officer grabbed her gun and fired twice. Bang. Bang. 2 bullets hit him, one in the side, one in the leg. He didn't fall. He didn't flinch. He turned toward her with a slow, eerie calm. The officer raised the gun again, shaking violently. "Sir, don't move." Lavar took a single step toward her. Then another. "Oh God." She fired again. Bang. The bullet hit his shoulder. He kept walking. Her hands shook so badly she accidentally dropped her final magazine on the grass. "No, no, no, no," she cried, scrambling for it. Lavar reached her. He grabbed her shoulder with one hand and threw her across the yard like she weighed nothing. Her scream tore across the neighborhood as her body slammed into a tree. She fell unconscious, slumping at the base of the trunk. "No!" I screamed. I ran toward her instinctively, but Lavar's arm shot out, blocking my path. He towered over me, his breath cold as winter, chilling my skin. He leaned in close until his lips hovered near my ear. "Bride." The word was soft, gentle, possessive, horrifying. I swung the rake again, but he caught it mid-air like it was made of paper. With a flick of his wrist, he ripped it out of my hands and tossed it across the lawn. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own feet. He stepped toward me, slow and deliberate. Eudora's voice cracked as she screamed, "Lavar, stop. If any part of you can hear me, stop." He paused. Just for a moment. Something flickered behind those black eyes. A tremor. A glitch. A shadow of the man he used to be. "Lavar," I whispered, voice breaking. "Please, fight it. Please." His jaw twitched. His hands trembled. A soft whimper escaped him, so human it punched tears out of me. Then, just as quickly, The darkness swallowed it again. His face hardened. His body straightened. And the thing inside him snapped back into place. He took another step toward me, his voice returning to that soulless monotone. "Bride, come home." I backed away slowly until my foot hit something metal, the fallen officer's flashlight. I grabbed it and held it up. Not as a weapon. As a light. Desperate. Shaking. I flicked it on. The bright beam cut through the yard and hit LeVar squarely in the face. He recoiled. Hard. His body jerked backward like the light burned him. A sound tore from his throat. High, guttural, pained. He raised his hands to shield his eyes. That's when I realized. The light hurt him. "Marceline!" Eudora yelled. "He hates the light. Use it." I stumbled forward, shoving the flashlight beam into his eyes again. He roared, an unholy twisted sound, and stumbled back into the hedges. Branches snapped. Leaves flew everywhere. I kept the light on him, hands trembling. He screeched and covered his face. Then he scrambled backward, on all fours like an animal, before bolting into the dark line of trees at the edge of the street. I didn't breathe. Not until the darkness swallowed him completely. Eudora sagged against the railing, tears streaming down her cheeks. I stared at the trees where he disappeared. My entire body shook. My knees buckled. I fell to the ground and sobbed. Not because I was weak. Not because I was afraid. But because the man I loved, the man I said yes to, was gone. Something else had taken him. Something ancient. Something evil. And now it was loose. The officer groaned softly from across the yard, alive but barely conscious. Eudora whispered hoarsely, "He'll come back. When the dark gets deeper, he'll come back for you." I wiped my face with shaking hands. A cold, steady resolve settled in my chest. "No," I whispered. "I'm done running." I stood slowly, flashlight still in hand. "I'm ending this." Eudora looked at me with a mixture of fear and hope. "How?" she asked. I turned toward the trees where LeVar had vanished. "I'm going to find out what my grandmother knew," I said. "Everything she wrote. Everything she tried to hide. And then," I whispered, a tear rolling down my cheek, "I'm going to save him. Or stop him." A branch snapped in the woods. Something moved. Watching. Waiting. The darkness pulsed like a living thing. And I knew. The final confrontation was coming. By the time the police cars and ambulance arrived, the sun had slipped low behind the trees. Flashing red and blue lights washed over Eudora's yard, painting everything in frantic colors. Officers moved through the scene, searching the woods, asking questions, marking bullet shells on the grass. But none of them understood what really happened. How could they? This was not something you reported with normal words. Not something that fit in a police report. Attacked by my fiancé. Possessed by a generational darkness my grandmother tried to warn me about. They would lock me in a hospital bed for careful watching. So I stayed quiet. Not out of fear. Out of purpose. Eudora was rushed into an ambulance. The officer who tried to save us was lifted onto a stretcher, bruised but alive. She kept asking me what I saw. Why the bullets didn't stop him. Why he moved like that. All I said was, "I don't know." Lie number 1. I did know. And I knew what I had to do next. As the paramedics pulled away, Eudora reached for my hand through the open ambulance door. Her grip was weak but steady. "Marceline," she whispered, "this started long before either of us. But you're the only one strong enough to end it." "I don't know how," I whispered back. Her eyes softened. "Your grandmother did. That's why she left the notes." The doors closed. The ambulance drove off. And I stood there, alone in the front yard, surrounded by police tape and questions. Surrounded by neighbors whispering. But all I heard was one voice. My grandmother's voice. "Marceline, cancel your wedding." Now I understood. Not out of fear of Lavar. Out of fear of what lived inside him. What lived inside all the men in Eudora's husband's bloodline. What had hunted women for decades. But I wasn't leaving this world afraid. Not anymore. Not after everything I survived in this life. I walked back inside Eudora's quiet house, stepped over the broken glass, and picked up the shoebox still sitting on the coffee table. Inside the lid, written in my grandmother's handwriting, was something I hadn't seen before. For the last door's woman who must face the truth. My breath faltered. The last door's woman. Me. I pulled the photos out one by one, examining every wrinkle, every shadow, every detail. My grandmother. Her best friend. Young Eudora. The man they all feared. And then. The envelope. My name on the front. Written in her looping handwriting. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded into thirds. When I opened it, her voice filled my mind. Not her body, not her ghost, but her voice the way she always spoke when she wanted me to listen. Marceline. If you are reading this, the darkness has returned. But you are not like the others. You carry a light in you stronger than you know. This darkness cannot be killed by bullets. Cannot be tied down by chains. Cannot be reasoned with. But it can be broken. It can be weakened. It can be driven out by truth. The men who were taken by it could never be saved. But the women they loved could end it. You are one of them. Do not run. Do not hide. Find the source. End it before it ends you. And remember, what he has become is not your fault. But what you choose next will be your victory. My vision blurred with tears. She left me a map. Not of roads. Of courage. Suddenly, the lights in Eudora's house flickered. Once. Twice. Then the hallway light buzzed and went dark. A cold breeze slid through the room even though every window was shut. My body froze. My breath caught. Then I heard it. From the backyard. From the darkness of the trees. From the place he ran into. A sound. A whisper. Long and low and rumbling. Ma, see, line. He was back. And he was calling for me again. I grabbed the flashlight, the shoebox, and the note. And I stepped outside. Not stumbling. Not crying. Steady. The police were still searching the woods, calling out his name like he was simply missing. I walked past them. Toward the tree line. Toward the same shadows that swallowed him only hours ago. A young officer spotted me. Ma'am. You can't go in there. It's not safe. I didn't slow down. Ma'am. Please. Another officer stepped in front of me. I looked him straight in the eye. My fiancé is in those woods, I said, voice iron strong. And I'm the only one who can finish this. He stared at me, confused but moved by something in my tone. I stepped around him and into the darkness. The trees closed in, swallowing the last bit of daylight. Branches cracked under my feet as I moved deeper into the forest. And then, suddenly, the woods grew silent. No insects. No birds. No wind. Just silence thick enough to choke me. Then, movement. Quick. Slithering. A shadow sliding between trees. My breath hitched, but I held my ground. A figure stepped out from behind the trunk of a pine. Lavar. His shirt soaked with dried blood. His face hidden in shadow. His chest rising slowly. Too slowly. He stared at me. I lifted the flashlight and aimed it at his face. He flinched, snarling, shielding his eyes. But then, something shifted. Something in him broke through the darkness. He looked at me. Not the creature. Lavar. The man. Tears filled his eyes. He whispered, voice cracking. Marceline. Run, before I lose control. My heart broke wide open. I took one step toward him. No, I whispered softly. No more running. Not from you. He shook violently, his hands clenching at his sides. Please, he begged. I can't fight it much longer. I pulled my grandmother's final note from the shoebox. Her words shook in my hands as I read them out loud. This darkness cannot stand in the light of the truth. As the words left my lips, Lavar screamed. Not in pain. In war. His body convulsed. He dropped to his knees. The dark in him writhed like smoke. I stepped closer. Lavar, I whispered. You were a good man. You loved me. And I loved you. He sobbed, shaking hard, fighting something I couldn't see. You are not this darkness, I said firmly. And it does not own you. He lifted his head slowly. His eyes flickered. Black. Brown. Black. Brown. Like two worlds fighting. I put the flashlight under my chin and shined it upward, casting bright light over my grandmother's letter. Light. Truth. Courage. His scream echoed through the forest. The darkness inside him twisted, pulling, tearing, writhing like it was being dragged out from under his skin. His back arched. His hands clawed into the dirt. Then he collapsed. Still. Silent. Breathing. Alive. But unconscious. The darkness. Gone. I dropped to my knees beside him, sobbing into my hands. Not out of fear. Out of victory. Out of release. Out of love. Police rushed into the clearing minutes later. They found me holding him, whispering his name like a prayer. They found the note trembling in my hand. And they found Lavar alive. Human. Weak. But freed. It took months. Months of therapy for him. Months of healing for me. Months of Eudora recovering. Months of piecing together the truth my grandmother left behind. Months of hearing her voice in my dreams telling me she was proud. But eventually, we made it. Not as husband and wife. Not as lovers. But as survivors. Lavar moved to another state, far away from the memories. He called Eudora every week. Sometimes he called me too, not for romance, not for more, but to say thank you. Because I saved his life. He saved mine too. And today, standing on my porch in the soft Georgia sunlight, I finally opened my grandmother's Bible again. Inside it, behind the note that started everything, was another folded slip of paper I had never noticed before. It read, Marceline. One day you will understand why I chose you. Your strength is bigger than the fear that hunted us. Your story will save someone else one day. Tell it bravely. And walk with your head lifted. I am proud of you. I closed the Bible and pressed it to my heart. The darkness that haunted my family was gone. Broken. Ended. And I survived. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But out of quiet strength. Just the way Nana Ruth wanted. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and comment below where you are watching from. Your support helps bring more powerful stories like this to life.